The bell above the cafe door jingled, but I barely noticed. I was halfway through my third coffee of the morning, tapping my fingers against the ceramic mug in a rhythm I didn't even realize. It was always the same. Me, the corner table, the newspaper I didn't read. The barista knew my order, black, no sugar, but I'd forgotten his name again. Not that it mattered. And then she was there. I didn't know her name either, but I remembered her from the building across the street. She had that habit of leaning on her balcony railing, watching the morning traffic like she could make sense of it all. That day she was leaning over a chair in the cafe, laughing at something her friend had said. Her laugh wasn't loud. It didn't fill the room, but it caught me anyway, like a page turning in slow motion. I felt my eyes flick toward her hands when she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Simple, careless. She didn't notice me, of course, not really. She never did. But there was a flicker, a tiny, impossible moment, where I thought maybe she had. I sipped my coffee, careful not to spill it, trying to look casual. I wasn't casual. I never was, not with her around. She glanced up and caught me staring. My eyes darted down immediately. I pretended to inspect a stain on the table, tracing it with the tip of my finger. My thumb brushed the napkin I had folded 3 times already. I hated that I was doing it. Folding napkins like a nervous kid. Her friend leaned close, whispering something. The older woman's smile softened, almost conspiratorial. I imagined her noticing me in the reflection of the window, a quiet acknowledgement I couldn't hope to reach. I was used to being invisible, not in an awful way, more like the air in a room, present but easy to forget. My phone buzzed in my pocket, unsent texts lingering in the drafts folder. Little things I wanted to say, then didn't. Small confessions that felt too heavy for the casual rhythm of the morning. The older woman waved at someone, then turned her gaze back to her friend. She laughed again, and I tried not to imagine what it would be like if she laughed at me instead. Not just with me, but at me, noticing, remembering. I looked down at the coffee, black and too bitter, and realized I'd been holding my breath. I exhaled slowly. Then my phone vibrated. A new message. I picked it up, thumb hovering over the screen. The name flashing at the top wasn't hers. But the text was simple. Come by if you have a minute. I stared at it, not sure if it was an accident or something deliberate. My fingers hovered over the keys, wanting to reply, wanting to ignore it, wanting to knock on the door and never leave. I glanced toward her again, but she was gone, vanished into the blur of a city morning. And yet, somehow, it felt like she was still there. I folded the napkin one last time and tucked it into my pocket. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew I was going. I found myself standing at her apartment door, hesitating more than I ever had at any other threshold. The smell of brewed tea hit me first, subtle, earthy, and then the faint click of a lock turning. She opened it before I could knock. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, like she wasn't sure if I belonged there. "Hey," I managed. My words felt small, inadequate. I noticed how her cardigan slipped slightly off one shoulder, and for a moment I almost didn't breathe. She gestured toward the kitchen. "Tea? I just made some." I nodded, following her in. The apartment was quiet, a kind of ordered comfort that made me aware of my own messy apartment across town. I perched on a chair at the small table, watching her pour water over the leaves, careful and deliberate. "You always drink black," she said, like she remembered. I shrugged, a little embarrassed. "Habit, I guess." There was a pause. Then she said, almost to herself, "I got divorced 3 years ago. Took me a while to even consider talking to anyone again." I felt the words settle between us. I didn't respond immediately. Didn't know if I should. Her voice was quiet, neutral, but I could hear the weight beneath it. She wasn't telling a story for effect. She was just sharing. I imagined all the reasons I shouldn't be here. The age gap, the awkward proximity, her friend's casual teasing at the cafe, flashing back like a warning. And yet I stayed. I poured my tea and held the cup with both hands, noticing how her fingers brushed mine ever so slightly when she set hers down. A small, Insignificant gesture, but my chest tightened anyway. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the faint hum of the radiator. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. Sometimes, the space between words said more than words ever could. Then she laughed, softly, at something she remembered from earlier. A small laugh that made her eyes crinkle, and I realized I'd been staring. My throat tightened, and I looked away, pretending to study the rim of my cup. She reached across the table, adjusting a stray napkin near me. Her hand lingered for just a second too long. Enough for me to notice. I didn't flinch, didn't pull away. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. I thought later, replaying it in my mind. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. Even now, back in the quiet of my apartment, I could feel the weight of that tiny gesture, her hand, her laugh, the way she remembered my coffee order. I knew it shouldn't mean so much, but it did. And somewhere deep down, I wanted it to. The evening had slipped in without me noticing. She was in the kitchen, humming softly while chopping vegetables, and I perched on the counter, careful not to take up too much space. My hands fidgeted with the edge of the towel draped over the rail. I tried to act casual, but my eyes kept drifting toward her. "You don't eat much," she said, glancing at the plate I'd nibbled at. "Just distracted," I murmured, and immediately regretted it. Too vague, too honest. She laughed, the sound bouncing off the walls. A soft sound, nothing flashy, but it made the silence between us heavier. I wanted to say something that mattered, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. Instead, I found myself studying the way her sleeve slid down slightly as she reached for a spice jar. Small movements, ordinary, and yet they made my chest tighten. I felt the pull again, that magnetic weight I couldn't name. And then, almost immediately, I pulled back. She glanced at me, eyebrows slightly raised, and I realized I'd been staring. My pulse kicked up, and I tried to adjust, clear my thoughts. Footsteps in the hallway. Her friend's voice, faint, laughing. She froze mid-chop. I froze too. The ordinary rhythm of the apartment shattered for a moment. Her friend appeared in the doorway, smiling. I shifted awkwardly, trying not to make it obvious that I'd been, noticing her in a way I probably shouldn't. "Hey, thought I'd check if you needed help with," the friend said. She stopped, noticing me. A flicker of curiosity in her eyes. I ducked my head, muttering something incomprehensible. She laughed softly and disappeared down the hall. The moment passed, but the tension lingered. We didn't speak immediately. I leaned against the counter, watching her, trying to normalize the rhythm of her movements again, pretending the near interruption hadn't thrown me off entirely. Her hand brushed mine as she handed me a plate. Just a touch. Enough to make me catch my breath and hold it too long. My eyes met hers, and for a second I thought I could see something. An acknowledgement, maybe, of the gravity we weren't naming. I stepped closer. Not too close. Just closer. Her gaze flicked to my mouth for a fraction of a second. I almost said it. Almost leaned in. My hand itched to reach out, but I froze. She paused too, knife in midair. Silence. Thick. Electric. And then the cat jumped onto the counter. Ridiculous timing. Breaking the spell. We both laughed softly, embarrassed. She moved around me, pretending to finish chopping, pretending the magnetic pull wasn't still there. But I knew it was. I could feel it in the shift of her shoulder, in the pause of her breath, in the faint tilt of her head toward mine. We were circling something unnamed. Something dangerous. Something we weren't ready to cross. Yet I wanted it. And I thought maybe she did too. The park was quieter than usual that evening. Bare trees, the occasional crunch of leaves underfoot, a cold wind pressing against my jacket. She walked a few steps ahead, hands tucked into her coat pockets, her scarf fluttering against her neck. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't. "I saw your friend today," I blurted, almost without thinking. My words stumbled out too fast. She glanced at me, eyebrows raised, a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, I don't know why it bothers me," I admitted, voice low. My fingers fidgeted with the zipper of my jacket. "Maybe because I don't want anyone else around you." Or maybe because I'm stupid. Her steps slowed. She turned fully to face me. The wind caught her hair. A strand drifted across her cheek. I brushed it away without meaning to, noticing how close I'd gotten. She didn't pull back. I shouldn't. I mean, it's complicated, she said softly, eyes glinting with some unreadable thought. I'm your neighbor, your landlady. I laughed quietly, a short, hollow sound. Yeah, complicated. That's one word for it. There was a pause, a long one. I felt the distance between us shrink without either of us moving. Just the cold air and the quiet rhythm of our breathing. I wanted to tell her everything I'd been keeping inside. The small, lonely mornings, the unsent messages, the way I'd noticed her laugh, her hands, the weight of her presence, but my voice faltered. She took a step closer, and I realized my chest had been holding its breath the whole walk. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume. Safe. Dangerous. Grounding. I don't know if I should say this, she whispered, almost to herself. But I like noticing you. Even when it's nothing. Even when I probably shouldn't. My stomach twisted. A combination of relief, fear, and longing. Relief that she admitted it. Fear that she knew too much. Longing because I wanted to lean in, say it back, make it real in a way neither of us could undo. I wanted to ask, do you feel it too? The pull. The risk? But the words didn't leave my mouth. Instead, I just stepped a fraction closer, my hand brushing the edge of hers as if by accident. She didn't flinch. She let the touch linger a heartbeat too long. And in that moment, everything between us, the silence, the longing, the risk, the tiny admissions, felt exposed. Vulnerable. Beautiful. The wind carried the last leaves of autumn across the path. And then I wondered, if I leaned in now, would she let me? The next week, she was different. Not colder exactly, just unavailable. Her texts came later, shorter, clipped. When I stopped by unannounced, she said she had errands, appointments, things that didn't leave room for small talk, or for me. I walked the building halls alone more than once, glancing at her door, imagining her inside, doing nothing extraordinary. But the air between us had shifted. It was noticeable in the way she barely met my eyes, in the way her hand lingered just a little less when handing me a plate, in the absent warmth of her smile at the mailbox. I tried to tell myself it wasn't personal. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she had obligations. Then I saw her one evening, across the street, talking to a younger man with ease, laughing too freely. I didn't know who he was. A friend, a relative, or something else. My stomach turned. I wanted to look away, but my feet stayed planted. That night, I replayed every gesture, every lingering glance from before. Had I imagined it? The touch of her hand, the way her eyes softened when she looked at me? Or had she just allowed it for a while, and now the spell was broken? I stopped by the cafe we had met at, hoping to stumble across her. She wasn't there. I nursed a coffee, black, my hands curling around the warm cup, feeling the weight of absence. My phone vibrated with a notification, and I almost jumped. But it was a message from a friend, not her. I opened my drafts folder, rereading a text I had never sent. I keep thinking about the other day. About you. About us. I deleted it. Then typed it again. Paused. Deleted it again. The next morning, I passed her door. It was closed. Silent. The lock was the same, the hallway the same. Nothing to indicate what had changed or why. I pressed my ear against it, almost hoping for a clue, and then stepped back. I didn't feel heartbroken. I wrote later, pacing in my apartment. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I left her a note once, slipped under the door. Just my name, a number, no words. Weeks passed. No reply. The apartment across the hall felt empty in ways it hadn't before. The mail slot remained undisturbed, the chair she had sat in still angled toward the window. I imagined her there, imagining me, imagining everything and nothing at the same time. I wanted to knock. I wanted to call. I wanted to disappear. And yet I did nothing. I just waited, suspended in a quiet, suspended state of maybe maybe not. The seat at the kitchen table stayed empty that night, and I stayed outside her door, pretending to look at the sky. I knocked. Not loudly, not insistently, just a soft, careful tap against the door. It opened before I could step back. She stood there, scarf still around her neck, hair slightly messy, like she had been caught in thought. Her eyes met mine. No questions, no accusations, just presence. I started, stopped, restarted. My hands curled at my sides, restless. She tilted her head. "You came," she said softly. "I didn't. I wasn't sure," I admitted. "I thought maybe." She raised a hand, almost gently stopping me. "I'm glad you did." We moved inside. The apartment smelled faintly of tea and the lingering cold outside. The chair at the kitchen table waited for me. I sat. She poured a second cup, her hands steady, though I noticed the way her fingers lingered near mine for a heartbeat too long. "I didn't mean to pull away," she said, voice low, careful. "I had my reasons." "I still do." I nodded, tasting the words between us, feeling the weight of the moments we'd skipped over. "I understand. Sort of. I kept thinking about you. About us. Even when you weren't present." Her lips pressed together briefly, a micro smile, maybe embarrassed, maybe shy. She sat across from me, and for the first time in weeks, the space between us felt deliberate, intentional, safe. "I think," she said after a pause, "I've been afraid. Afraid of what it might mean. Afraid of everything." I leaned slightly forward. "Me too. All of it." But my voice trailed. Couldn't quite finish. Didn't have to. She laughed softly, quietly, a short sound that broke the tension. "Okay," she said. "Simple. Enough. Enough for me to feel that the thread connecting us hadn't snapped." We sat there, hands brushing occasionally, the quiet small gestures speaking louder than any grand declaration could. Her gaze lingered, and I didn't look away. I didn't need to. For a moment, nothing moved except the faint hum of the radiator. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. The unsent texts, the near misses, the weeks of pause. It was all there, acknowledged without words. And I realized that saying it wasn't necessary anymore. Just being there. Just being seen. Just being allowed. She reached across and touched my hand. Light. Gentle. Unrushed. I held it, letting the tension ease, the quiet understanding settle between us. "Okay," I said softly. She smiled. Small. Real. Enough. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we could start again. Carefully, quietly, without the world pressing in. Weeks passed, then months, in a rhythm neither of us forced, but both of us followed. I'd see her in the mornings, sometimes on the balcony, sometimes at the mailbox, and sometimes just in passing in the hallway. The bench by the park had become ours, though we never claimed it out loud. Mornings settled into a gentle cadence. I'd pour black coffee, she'd bring tea. The mugs clinked softly, a tiny ritual, nothing dramatic, nothing performed. Just us, noticing the small details. I still folded napkins sometimes, out of habit, and she noticed once, smiled, and said nothing. She told me about her work, about friends, about the ways life moved on quietly. I told her things too, small truths, little confessions that had never found the right moment before. We didn't need grand statements. The honesty was in the ordinary. One morning, 8:47 a.m., the sun cutting a diagonal stripe across the kitchen floor, she reached for my hand. I didn't hesitate. The touch was familiar, yet new each time. A reminder that this was our rhythm, carefully built from the pauses, the near misses, the unsent messages, and the quiet confessions. Evenings were for tea on the balcony, the city stretching out below, neither of us speaking more than necessary. I noticed her laugh again, the same soft sound that had first caught me in the café. I noticed her hands, her small gestures, the way she moved around the kitchen. And she noticed me noticing, just as I wanted her to. Nothing had been perfect. There were mornings I'd awake to the quiet ache of missing her, moments she'd pause before saying something, and days when the weight of our routines pressed harder than usual. But we found each other in the pauses, in the silent acknowledgement of presence, in gestures too small for anyone else to notice. One afternoon, she reached across the kitchen table, brushing my fingers lightly as she handed me a mug. Our eyes met, and we laughed softly, embarrassed at the intimacy that had crept into the ordinary. I thought back to the cafe, to the missed glances, the folded napkins, the texts never sent, the bench in the park. It all led here, to this quiet, steady warmth. I leaned back, letting the sunlight warm my face. She leaned against the counter, folding tea bags into a neat stack, her eyes crinkling when she smiled at something I said. And in that ordinary, imperfect moment, I realized this was enough. No fireworks, no declarations, just the subtle, enduring weight of someone finally being there. For me, for her, for us. And as she handed me my coffee, black, exactly how I liked it, I caught her gaze and thought, we built this together, quietly, deliberately. And maybe that was the best kind of love. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?